Boosh. Hang on.
Booshed it.
Should be coming. Just double checking. There we go. Okay.
Are we live? Are we live?
We are live. I'm just throwing out that bat signal.
Get it up.
No fancy intro. I mean, we are rolling without a chief technical officer on this one. I think
there's a bit of I imagine on your end, I was just trying to log into my account. I wasn't even getting anything ready, and I was sweating. So I imagine, was it hard to get this? So for anyone listening, we switched to, this is a little behind baseball, a little technical shenanigans. We switched from Zoom to a different program because Adam is in New York living his best life, and left AJ and I to, on our second Sunday episode, he left us to fend for himself because he has his second job. This is our first job. He ran out on us to do his other job to feed his family. So, but we battled together and we got it rolling. You figured her out.
I mean, I blame him for having a family in the first place. But hey, I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm chilling, as you can see, with some history behind me.
You got Jimmy Johnson with you.
Got Jimmy J in the middle of what looks like a bukkake party. Just having a great time. Those are memories that, last forever. But hey, this every single year we come to this same point of the season, and the Cowboys are in line to make trades with every single NFL player and draft every single NFL player. So
every it's funny that you say that. Every article seems like every player is linked to Dallas somehow. I got a question for you though. Does this pick up on the on here?
Oh yeah.
Crack them if you got them, son. But you're right. At this time of year, with every free agency player and every single draft prospect, it's like they talk to the Cowboys. They would love to be on the team. You hear it from everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's super rare when a player now, although it has happened to like some really prolific draft picks in the past, but they rarely say, "Oh, I don't want to play for that team." Right. I think the last one maybe was Eli Manning, if memory serves me correct.
Yeah, he got drafted. I want to say it was by the Chargers, but he did get drafted. He got drafted by someone. Also, who else did? There was a few players that have done that. But yeah, definitely Eli Manning. He didn't want to play. He held out basically and said, "Well, I'm not going to play for you guys, so you may as well trade picks." So, but you don't really see that very often.
No, and there was that whole, I think it's a 30-on-30, where there's a bunch of things that happened in one day. OJ Simpson. There was the drafting of a couple quarterbacks. And I think one of them had the same type of thing. But anyways, like, it's just something you don't necessarily see now, where a player's like, "Oh, hell no, I don't want to go play for the Jags."
Well, I think now with being the very first overall pick, you make so much more money than, say, even the fifth or sixth or seventh. So at this point, if you're going to get drafted, you're just happy. Another player that did it was John Elway. He didn't want to go play. Yes. I think he got drafted, or Indianapolis was going to, or Baltimore, I think it was at the time, was going to draft him. And he basically said, "I'm not doing it." But in this year with the Cowboys, that's not going to happen because we're going at about 26. Have you been keeping up with any of the combine stuff from the last few days?
Yeah, actually yesterday I was really excited. I sent the same message twice to you boys. But like, it was probably one of my favorite days. Now, the problem with watching the combine is I don't know enough about the fundamentals. So every quarterback, for example, I was like, "Oh man, that guy can throw a deep ball. Oh man, that guy can really throw that hitch." But there was like, if I listened with the volume up, they were pulling like, "Oh, look at him throwing across his body. That's going to be an issue." And I can't see that shit. So I started to make notes, and they just all started adding up to be the same. So I was like, okay, like, I really don't like it. They all look like good quarterbacks to me. Although a few that stood out was Hayner, I believe his name, or Haydner, something like that. And Stetson Bennett, although I think he's kind of probably going to be someone who the Cowboys aren't going to draft because he's going to go higher than expected. But yeah, and then wide receivers, I mean, they're all so fucking fast. I did learn a little bit more though about what the drills mean, and like, okay, if they did good on this, it means that they have good explosive speed.
So any of the jumping type of stuff, like the high jump and the vertical jump and the long jump, that's basically all for explosiveness. Like they get worried about guys that don't necessarily jump far for their size, because that's one of the main things. That's your pushing power. That's if someone's in front of you and you need to block, or that's all coming from your legs. So those end up being huge kind of stats that they look at. One thing that did happen for the quarterbacks, before we get away from the quarterbacks, is Anthony Richardson, since 2003, ran one of the top 5 times ever by a quarterback. He ran 40 time at 4.43. That's like kind of my biggest thing that I pay attention to, because it's like pretty cut and dry. Oh, this guy ran this fast, right? Like you could basically look at a quarterback, have his 40, and be like, okay, this dude ran that fast. A surprising one was Max Duggan from quarterback from TCU. And this puts it into perspective a little bit. He ran a 40 time at 4.52. CeeDee Lamb ran his at 4.51. So it's kind of crazy when you put him up against one of our, I would say CeeDee Lamb's probably one of our fastest players, and this guy ran it pretty quick. He's been linked to Dallas a bit because he might fall down the draft boards and be there around maybe the 5th to 7th round. So if you had to pick a quarterback, because we're talking quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight ends from yesterday, what round would you be willing to finally say, okay, there's a guy I like here, let's possibly take him?
Right. I think the first 3 rounds you need to dedicate to like next year starting positions as best you can. So 4th round and after, and then that's really going to be determined on who's left and can we wait another round potentially. Like I always like to look at this when I'm making a decision on Madden, is I kind of calculate 30 picks. And I know this isn't really how it works out because not everyone's picking DPA, but you can kind of look forward 30 picks and be like, okay, there's 3 guys left in that area who are probably going to be there, who I would take. Yeah. So I'm going to draft, another position because I believe I'm going to have a choice of those 3 guys. Doesn't really work out, but at the same time, if someone's standing out at that number in 3rd round, I know it's early, but if someone's standing out and you feel good about them, you probably hate the pick at that time. But if they pick up a quarterback who's gonna either A, push Dak, or B, maybe some trade value in the future, if that's how things shuffle, I'm fine with that too. But you're really not going to know until the end of that season if that's paying off or not. So it's more risky. Round? 4th round.
4th, yeah. See, I'm kind of the same. I kind of feel the same way. Like you said, 1 to 3. There's too many good players, and we have too many holes on our team right now. Well, maybe not holes, but we have too many positions that we need to upgrade. So I agree. I would hate if the Cowboys drafted a quarterback in the first 3 rounds. 4th round, I think you're fair enough to go for anyone if they see a player they like. Not only will, like you said, light a fire under Dak's ass, but possibly he ends up being trade bait in the future. Yeah, kind of like the Patriots had done forever.
Yeah, if you could take say was a 3rd rounder and move him up so or he performs well enough and he becomes a 2nd or 1st round trade value of however you want to break that down, whether it's for players or for picks. Okay, so that's a good investment. But we've talked about it. We are in that kind of win now scenario. So I would not really look for that, especially with what we're seeing out there. Like, just to not move necessarily if there's anything that you want to say about quarterbacks, but we can hang here. But there were some big boys running 4.4s, the same as that Tank Dell.
Yeah.
So like, was there any shakeup for you after seeing yesterday's combine with the wide receivers and cornerbacks? Was there any shakeup to you on who you want to go with first?
Well, a guy that I talked about in my mock draft article on CowboysCanFan.com, our blog post. I was talking about how DJ Turner I thought would be the fastest cornerback in the NFL or in the draft class. And he blew everyone away with a 4.26 40, that's pretty much flying. No one's even really close to 4.2. You got Bennett almost fringe taking it. Someone that with the cornerback position, DJ Turner, that probably jumped him up a couple rounds. One surprise, actually 2 wide receivers I was surprised about. Jalen Hyatt and Booty both had very suspect combines. Like Hyatt, he said he got hurt, and Booty just didn't explode. Like these guys are both supposed to be running high 4.3 or at least high 4.3s, and Jalen Hyatt 4.40. He was expected to be in the 4.2s. That's his whole trait. His whole claim to fame going into the NFL is supposed to be his 40 time. He said he was banged up. Possibly he's going to have it. He'll probably run again at his pro day, at Tennessee's pro day. But if he still doesn't break into the low 4.3s, that's going to hurt his draft stock as being a guy that's supposed to be a burner.
Do you feel like wide receiver and cornerback is still the number 1-2 positions to be looking for?
Well, there's been a couple guys. I mean, that Nolan Smith, who we drafted in our mock draft last week, you see a guy like that moving how he's moving. If you get to the point and you have an athletic freak like him at 26, I'm all about the athletic guys at that point, right? Like 26, you're looking for a guy that busts out on the athletic measurements, not so much as his game. At 26, you're not a premier. How can I explain it? You're not really a premier player like the top 10 guys are. I'd say late first round picks. You're kind of looking for a Nolan Smith who ran a 4.39 and just jumped out as a workout maniac, right? So if he's there, there's running back possibly. Like there's so many ways the Cowboys could end up going. And with free agency starting March 15th, it kind of depends what we do there before we can even really see what we're going to do in the draft.
Yeah, I you never forget that, or you have to remember that there's the free agency before, and that can like have the biggest impact. Outside of I think a lot of guys performed well on the combine and moved themselves up. I don't know how many people hurt themselves. Like you mentioned, though, with Hyatt kind of running that lower 4 or a 4.4 exactly, it's a disappointment. Although still, it's it's a 0.1 second faster than CeeDee Lamb. So, how much does that really matter? They also were looking more at the 10-second split or 10 to 20 second split for some players too, because that's where I guess the actual difference is made, right? So for running backs, I think that first 10 yards is really important, how quickly they can get to 10 yards. And then for wide receivers, I believe it's between the 10 to 20 yard range. So, how much does it mean overall? Well, it's an old school metric that they're still doing, but I think that the teams don't necessarily look at the 40 as a whole. They're looking at like chunks of it, which is interesting.
I don't think you can. It's a fun thing for us fans at home to kind of rest our hat on, because it's something that's so easy to. It's so black and white, right? He either ran it faster, he ran it slow. But I can't remember what coach it was they interviewed asking, how much do you put into these workouts? And he goes, they don't. I mean, a guy can jump up the boards, but a lot of the time they're looking at tape, right? They're looking at if the guy can actually play. He said anyone can be a good play well in his pajamas. Can't remember what coach it was, but like with the quarterbacks, they should all have really good combines. They don't have anyone rushing them. They're not getting tackled. You know what I mean? Like there's not really, it's just it's a hard way the combine has a lot built up about it, but it's a hard way to actually use it to what these teams are actually looking at.
I think Dan Quinn even said something along those lines too.
And maybe it was DQ.
Yeah. But this is just, when I mentioned earlier there, I found that link that you shared. It's pretty funny though. Tank Dell, 5'8", almost 5'9", or 5'8.5", I guess. Him and I'm not even going to try to say that guy's name.
Double A, baby.
Double A. who's 282 pounds, mind you. They each ran a 4.49. So
that's insane.
Yeah.
I wish they actually, because they kind of cropped them so that they look the same size for the picture, but I wish it actually was cropped so you could see like Dell's probably to this guy's nipples.
Yeah, Double A is 170 pounds heavier. So
and they ran the same 40. Imagine him hitting Dell.
Well, there was a couple big boys, D linemen and I think interiors too, who were running like extremely fast for their size.
Yeah, there was a defensive tackle that ran faster than Cansey, the defensive tackle from Pittsburgh. He ran a 4.67, and he is not a small man. So he ran the fastest since I believe it was Aaron Donald. Let's see his weights: 6'1", 281 pounds, and he ran a 4.67.
Yeah, I know, eh?
That's crazy.
Well, it's exciting to see. I mean, but the reality is we're only going to get maximum 7 of these guys. I think we got some pick consolation picks or whatever they're called. So, but yeah, this is where we're going to go over some articles. I mean, unless there's anything else you want to say about.
No, the combine's always fun. The combine's always fun to watch, and it's fun to see these guys run fast and make plays. But I mean, how much can you actually put into it?
As much as we can, but the coaches don't seem to. So here's our articles, and I'm just going to go through them randomly.
Okay.
How I pulled them up. So the order might not make sense, but we're going to make it work. It's kind of these are all the LandryHat.com, home of the Cowboys Can Fan podcast. So we have here by Jerry Trotta. The Cowboys get last laugh over Leo Collins' contract disaster with Bengals. So some of the big highlights, I guess, that they bring out here is that both Dorrance Armstrong and Sam Williams combined for 12.5 sacks, 25 quarterback hits, and 20 tackles, which filled in nicely. They're talking about letting Gregory go. But then the transition to steal from Collins was actually really awesome and pretty much solidified Steele, if he'll have it, as being our right tackle for years to come. Hopefully not weeks to come. But Collins had a rough time in with the Bengals, and although he performed well, I think he was right here. It says ranked 51st among tackles for pass blocking. So.
Well, and his salary going into this season, they're saying that he's a prime candidate to get cut by the Bengals, right? So
yeah,
you rewind, and I was one of those guys. I was mad when we didn't re-sign La'el Collins because he was not bad for the Cowboys. Yeah, he had hit some injury history and some penalty history, but he was a decent fill-in, and I was still worried that Steele wouldn't be able to play at a high level. Fast forward to Steele on his way to having an All-Pro and Pro Bowl season, gets hurt, but played unreal. And Collins, a year later at this time, is possibly going to be back being a free agent. It's kind of shitty because whenever we talk about most of the moves that were made last season, you always hear about the Amari Cooper thing. But minus completely flubbing that, the Cowboys struck gold, honestly, by not re-signing Randy Gregory or re-signing La'el Collins.
Yeah, I mean,
if we would have re-signed both those guys, Randy Gregory went on to play 5 games. He broke the bank from the Broncos, only played 5 games. We had Dorrance Armstrong and Sam Williams, who filled in more than enough for Randy Gregory's production. And then, like I said, Steele had an amazing season.
Yeah, so I mean, this is kind of in line with all the moves that are made. Some people just flat out don't trust the Cowboys. I really like what I see when they make these tough decisions. Sometimes it takes them a while. I wonder how long the Zeke fiasco is probably going to go on till after July. I'm sure that makes the most sense when the July 1st cut date. But these
July
two scenarios. June 1st. Sorry. It's June 1st. Where you can save a bunch of money.
Snip them already.
Yeah. But both Lael Collins and Randy Gregory, I was a little upset that they weren't re-signed, but now in hindsight, yeah, it's a great move. So even more reason to trust them.
And that's going to happen again this season. There's going to be someone that we want them to re-sign that they don't, that they move away from, and we're probably going to be mad about it. And then it might end up working out, it might not. And it worked out in both ways last year. Getting rid of Mari Cooper hurt us, but they made a couple good plays that also saved us.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, the Amari Cooper opened up the door to allow us to sign Peters, even though I don't think it was up for a huge contract, but they could have done more with it. That's for damn sure. And they could have got more for it. But let's not open up that can of worms. How about 3 reasons the Cowboys should pursue star receiver DeAndre Hopkins? Now, before I even read this, I just don't think it's even possible with his contract. He's got $30 million and $26 million, I think, guaranteed or on the cap hit anyways over the next 2 seasons. I would love to make a play for him. I just do not see how it's possible.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because they have the 3 reasons why we should go for receiver DeAndre Hopkins, but there's one big reason that we're not going to. He's going to cost way too much money, right? Like like you said, there's no fucking way it's going to happen. He's going to be super expensive. I get obviously a guy like him is going to help the Cowboys, but the Cowboys are already in financial cap hell. Trying to add a player like him, and he's going to want to still have he's still going to be taking a big cap number. I just don't think it's possible. But for fun, we will see what the 3 reasons are.
Absolutely, yeah. So number 1 is take some pressure off of CeeDee Lamb. I mean,
I'll say this with this. Is this not something that we could do throughout the draft too, though? Right?
Oh,
like this is what I'd like to do this as we go through these 3 points. Drafting a wide receiver in the 1st or 2nd round theoretically should take pressure off of CeeDee Lamb, right? Yes. So there's way cheaper ways. There's also, and granted, it didn't work very well last year with the free agency signings of wide receivers that we went for, but there is even going to be some wide receivers in the free agency market that are going to be cheaper than someone like DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, exactly. When I looked at the list, the 2 that stuck out to me that produced and then also had I think around $3 million a year contracts, which might go up for sure, but Juju Smith-Schuster and Jacoby Myers, those 2, I don't think they solve the issue, but I think if you're looking to just add to take some pressure off, those 2 would be able to do that. Especially, let's also remember Michael Gallup will be back. And the consensus on that is that he was a little lackluster last season because his injury was still nagging him. That won't be an excuse. So, if it all lines up and that's true, adding in a Juju Smith-Schuster or a Jacoby Myers,
Odell Beckham
would be beneficial. Odell Beckham, yeah, those would be beneficial,
right? So there's still definitely guys who could be cheaper, and then you could even go down the list a little bit more. So I just saw Jacoby Meyer there. I'm just kind of going through the top list here. There's Juju's ranked at 27th, most sought after free agent. I want to see who the next guy would be. Just give me a sec here, because there's always plug and play guys that you can end up finding in free agency. Except it kind of bit us in the ass last year. It didn't work at all. So I guess after those 3 guys, there's not a whole lot. So I wonder if they might be sought after. I mean, there's Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton at 55. I mean, he was all right. He's definitely serviceable. Who else do we got here? I wish they could.
Alan Lazard had a respectable season, but again, he's just not that player who's going to boost the offense. He might just help keep it.
Right. So I guess that's what they're saying. Like DeAndre Hopkins, he's going to be, I mean, if he gets signed to your team, he's pretty much your number 1 wide receiver. Like, I guess CeeDee Lamb might still be targeted, but DeAndre Hopkins is a true number 1 also.
Yeah.
So number 1 is take some pressure off CeeDee Lamb. Number 2, DeAndre Hopkins' contract is absorbable. Okay, you got to read this because you got to explain this to me. How is it absorbable? Okay. Because I've been thinking that it wasn't.
So, me too. So Hopkins has received all of his guaranteed money, He would likely seek another contract with a new team, but as of now, all teams need to give up our multiple second-round picks, possible multiple second-round picks, they say. So this is a decision the front office would have to make, but to get a top 10 receiver for this asking price is not costly. Hopkins' contract is easy to deal with, so there should be no salary cap issues. So I guess maybe if they sign him, they could, or if they trade for him, they could re-sign him, and then that would be fine. But I don't know.
Do you think that's possible? Like they're saying, Hopkins, okay, so he's got all his guaranteed money, but he wants to, whenever he gets signed by a new team, he's going to want a new contract.
Yeah.
Right. And that's going to be with new guaranteed. So this kind of reason is reaching a little bit for me. I don't think this is a good enough reason to sign a guy because you're hoping because he's been paid already. But they say they contradict themselves right after by saying he's going to want a new contract.
Well, even if he does, it's still going to be 15 or 20 million a season.
Exactly. So that's still going to count against the cap. And I think right now we're still what? 7 million
5 mil
over. Yeah. So we're still over. So it still just doesn't seem plausible.
No. And then of course give Dak Prescott another weapon. I mean, this goes hand in hand with point number one too, right?
Yeah, point number one. I'd almost say they're the same point.
Yeah.
So let's say this. I'll give two reasons why it's not a good idea. Yep. One, and I guess they're kind of hand in hand. Reason one, he's going to cost way too much money, and reason two, there's better ways to address a position of need like wide receiver that are more affordable and not detrimental to what the Cowboys are going to want to do in 2023 through the draft and possibly through free agency. I just think that's a better route than trading two second-round picks and then also being stuck in a salary cap contract issue.
Yeah. And I think the picks are more valuable.
Same. I think where we're at, he's 30 years old. There's a possibility that you pick up a very good football player in the second round who could end up having more production in our offense. And then you're not having that weird, who's the number one receiver, CeeDee Lamb or DeAndre Hopkins. CeeDee Lamb's the guy, and then you bring in a younger guy to help fill in that role.
Yep.
Granted, I would love to. It would be cool to see what Hopkins would do on the offense, but I don't think it's going to happen.
If it does happen, I'm happy for it. But I got to be realistic. So, an article here by Joey Polizzi. That's how I'm going to say his name. Examining the pros.
Polizzi on this.
Yeah, examining the pros and cons of Cowboys re-signing Dalton Schultz. So another most likely not probable scenario.
Yeah.
But let's have a look at what they have to say. First of all, has your mind changed on Schultz at all?
If we're bringing him back?
Yeah.
I don't think we're bringing him back. I think he's going to be too expensive. And again, they're calling this draft class one of the best tight end draft classes in the last 20 years. So, I mean, realistically, again, even though we just drafted two tight ends last year, and Jake Ferguson and Peyton Hendershot, you could possibly find a third one to get into that rotation that the Cowboys like to run. There's other places we need to spend money, and I don't think Schultz is going to be one of the spots the Cowboys decide to spend the money on.
No. But here's what they're saying. The Cowboys aren't expected to tag Schultz. He received a $10.9 million tag last year. Probably going to be one of the top tight ends on the free market, which makes it even more unlikely because he's going to get paid, son. But I was hoping they'd have points here, but they just got a bunch of written stuff. But I guess
well,
hey,
here,
what do you think?
Let's give us our pros. They give us a good topic to discuss. I mean, pros. Yeah. He's been Dak Prescott's safety blanket for the last 3 seasons. He's honestly been in the top 5 tight end categories or top 5 tight end in most categories for the last 3 seasons. That's why he's priced himself out from the Cowboys. But the con, I won't even roll into cons yet. But that's the pros. He's a touchdown machine. He's very good in the red zone. Dak Prescott's very comfortable with him, and he's a top player at his position. Those would be my pros.
Yeah, I mean, I go along with all that. I think he is he's never going to be a standout tight end. Like that takes a special type of player.
He's never going to be a Gronkowski or a Travis Kelce. He's going to be, there's the top echelon, and then Schultz is, I would say, right below that. But he's still going to get, still going to get paid. He's still going to get paid. He's still going to make a lot of money.
Yeah, and he's young too, so you're going to get a couple of years out of him.
And his blocking, I'll say that his blocking got better this year too. I thought he blocked a lot better than he did in previous seasons, which is only adding to his amount of money he's about to make.
Yeah, well, this is the market value they say for him the first con is 4 years, $60 million. So $15 million a year.
And that's a big enough con to just not have him get re-signed.
Yeah, especially look, when we broke down what Ferguson and Hendershot could replicate without Schultz there. And things did turn out to be more prosperous in terms of yards and touchdowns and catch rate and all that. But those are still it's such a small sample size. But again, there was a lot of agreement online that what we saw, even though it wasn't that much between Hendershot and Ferguson, was enough to say these guys can take over.
Do you think it is?
No. I think
there's going to be a little bit of there's going to be a spot missing because of Schultz, right? But
yes,
this signing him for 4 years, $60 million is just not happening.
Well, this kind of changed my mind. When we did our mock drafts, I was saying no tight ends, but I've changed my mind because after looking at some of the tight ends, I think there's, again, like you just mentioned, there's 2 elite, and then there's a bunch of that next level in terms of the draft prospects coming in for tight ends. So if by chance one of those elite tight ends who can basically act as a receiver is available at 26, I could see that happening too. I think the one guy's name is Mayers. I can just go look.
Darnell Washington, he was that big dude that we were looking at, the big blocking tight end. I think Law Nation had posted. He ended up looking like a beast. Darnell Washington, 6'7", 264 pounds, 34 3/8 inch arms and 11-inch hands. The guy is just a beast.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be there he is. I wouldn't be against the Cowboys drafting a tight end as a weapon, a dynamic weapon.
And again, there is the free agency market. Maybe you get a tight end that's 6 to 8 million a year instead of 15 for a 1 or 2 year deal. Maybe a guy looking to be on a prove it type thing, like Gesicki from the Dolphins. I can't imagine him garnering too much interest from a lot of teams. I love Dalton Schultz. He had a great season, but I think it's time to move on to cheaper options.
Yeah, and this is what the Cowboys hopefully have learned. Sometimes it works out, and for when Zeke is playing, if you took the first half of each season, 2021, 2022, great, he's had great numbers, but then he gets a little injured and his production totally drops off, and then at that point it's like, oh well, now this isn't worth it. So yeah, were you gonna crack it? There we go. Crack him if you got him, son.
I was just waiting for a perfect time, and crack him if you got him.
Okay, well, we can get to the last article here.
I'd like to get to your last article.
A potential Cowboys first-round target subject to character concerns at Combine.
And this is a guy I like.
What's his name?
Cam Smith, cornerback. He's to me, I think if he's there even at 26, you got to look at him. But the issue is there is the character issues. They don't really say what they are. They just say that while they're checking him out, some character issues have popped up. So it's a very vague article, but people do have him falling down draft boards. So it's got to be something substantial. So what's it saying in that article, AJ? Because I can't read it.
Yeah, it says that teams quiz players on their football intelligence, but also dig into their background. They said that his character concerns are hurting Sam with teams which have identified issues such as work ethic, makeup, and off-field habits. So, I mean, the off-field habits is something that is kind of universal in some sense with players like, and I'm not just saying it on football, but just you grow up with a group of friends and not all of them, some of them turn out to be rotten apples, but they're still your friends because you don't really discover that as a teenager. It's fun. Then you become an adult and you start to have a career and make lots of money. And then it can become a little bit more obvious who those rotten apples are. So I don't blame anyone for those types of issues. Although at the same time, you are an adult and these aren't things that are like new. They should be part of the whole build up to becoming an NFL athlete and moving on to become a professional athlete. Like, I would assume that this is something that is taught. Not, I don't know if it's taught, but like, you're like, hey, make sure that you have these things in check and make sure you stay away from these kinds of people.
What do they mean by makeup?
I would assume like making things up, like if
work ethic, makeup, and off the field issues. It just seems, I don't really understand the makeup part of it. I understand like the work ethic, that's self-explanatory, the off the field issues, but the off the field issues is supposed to be what we're talking about. I don't know. Seems like a hit piece.
Could be, but I think the work ethic and makeup might be like the on-field type of issues in the locker room. Does he miss a practice and not make it up or something? I don't know. That's too vague, and it's definitely not cosmetics.
Oh, off the field habits. Sorry, that's my fault. So off the field habits, would that be like maybe smoking and drinking and partying?
That's what I was saying. Like
or video too much Twitch. Maybe he's video gaming it too much.
It would be like who? I think a lot of it has to be like, who do you hang out with?
Yeah. Just got to get him around a good group of dudes.
And
I don't know. I like Cam Smith if he's there maybe, and hopefully maybe this falls down. Maybe he falls back into the second round, and we can make amends for drafting Kelvin Joseph, who also had some character issues and off the field stuff, and was kind of what made him fall down draft boards. Kind of similar players, actually. They're both coming out of college, were physical, and had some stuff being said about them off the field. Do you find it? How much do you take in if you're a team? How much do you actually put into that? Like, do you think, oh, well, we'll get him here, we'll get him to Dallas, we'll get him into our system, we'll get him around the right guys, and that stuff will bring out the better in him? Do you take a lot into that, or do you think it'll just be same old, and it ends up turning into him having more off the field issues because now he has a bigger, now he's walking around as an NFL star and in one of the biggest media centers in the world?
I think that the off-field habits are less concerning to an extent because it's like, look, that's just part of growing up. But the work ethic is a bit of a concern. But you got to talk to him and see, like, where's his head at? Like, was he just so good at college that he didn't really have to try, as an example, which is like, I think that's something that can be corrected. Let's look at Justin Fields and his first comment in the NFL where he was like, it's easy. It wasn't too fast. And then he got smoked. and now it's been like whatever, a year or so, and he's become a really good football player. So I don't know if that has much connection with work ethic, but that's the same type of thing. Like, I think I do agree, but the interviews, it's important to get them into your program to really help them develop that mentality side of things for sure. But it could be a red flag. Absolutely. And obviously if it's hurting someone's draft stock, then it's something that they do take into account. To me though, it would have to be more of that on field or that work ethic that would be something that concerns me more.
Well, yeah, because off the field stuff and hanging out with the wrong people, wrong crowd, that can be changed. But work ethic is one of those things that if you have bad work ethic, you're not going to just wake up the next day and be like, I'm going to turn it up now. You're going to be the last guy into the last guy into the facility and the first guy gone, right? And this is where I kind of think Dan Quinn and Mike McCarthy, they'll be able to, this is the whole thing, like you said, with the interview process. I feel like they'll have a good feel on that type of player if he's not the right fit or not. Because he would be a great fit for the defense for the ways he plays on the field. He's physical, he's strong, he likes to hit, he likes contact. He'd be great in that aspect, but we don't need any guys taking plays off. No.
And there could be something coming in. If you're a leader on the team, I'm not saying this is good either, but it's difficult to be the motivator and then come onto a team and you're getting motivated by like everyone else who is an NFL pro, and you respect that. And so there could be that difference as well, just moving up from being looked at as a leader, and then now you are looking for someone to lead you. Obviously, you want your players to eventually turn into those leadership roles, but that can affect a person's work ethic too, where their motivation changes. So who the fuck knows? You gotta trust that. Yeah, DQ and the rest of the organization, when they're doing the interviews, they ask the right questions and they get that vibe and can determine that. Because there has been nightmare scenarios with players who have all the skills, all the athleticism, but then they just shit the bed when it comes to actually putting in the time.
Yeah. And then you're getting into the NFL where every person that you're playing against is just as athletic as you, if not more. Yeah. So it's the guys that end up becoming great in the NFL are the guys that are working extra hard, right? Like everyone, I mean, maybe a very small percentage of NFL players are still getting by pure athleticism, where most of the best they're also the most dedicated, they're the most motivated, they're the hardest workers, right? So those traits in the NFL level end up becoming so much more than the physical attributes a player has.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's all the articles. Actually, there was one more here. We had the top 100 free agents.
Yeah, I just had that up. It's we should just quickly go through it. I want to see how many Cowboys are on it. And I want to see how many Cowboys are on it and how many we think we're going to retain. So where's the first Cowboy come in at? I think it's probably Tony Pollard would be my guess. Somewhere down the list. Oh, go up for a sec. That's who we want right there. Payne. Up one more. That's who, if we're going to try. Yeah, if we're trying to go for anyone. And this is the thing. We could end up getting a guy like him, and then that ends up totally shifting how we focus the drafting party, right? But yeah, Payne looks like a beast.
On that, what I would love to see the Cowboys do is go out and solve one of those draft questions in free agency, just one.
Yep.
I think that would go a long way. And Payne would be a great place to put your chips in, I think, because he's a certain dude. He's young. And I don't know that defensive tackle outweighs wide receiver or cornerback necessarily, but that would make things a lot easier for decision making.
I feel like it's a spot that I'd rather take a guy that has a resume than just guessing on someone in the draft. I don't know why. Maybe it's because we don't draft a ton of defensive tackles, but I just know that this guy's going to cut. If we ended up signing him to a big contract, he's going to come in and help a position in need. And this is the different part. Like, I believe this position, defensive tackle, is a bigger fill-in than, say, wide receiver, right? But I feel like there's a better prospect in Payne right now than there is at 26 where we draft. But there might be a better wide receiver at 26 than going and getting a free agent. Do you know what I mean? Kind of?
Yeah, for sure. Well, the Commanders have placed the franchise on him, so I don't know how that works out. If someone franchises, can you trade for him or match it? Like how? No,
he'll be on their team. Yeah, he'll be on their team. I didn't know that.
Boo Irons. Okay, still scrolling down. Bobby Wagner wouldn't be bad.
Okay, could take a stab at him. I feel like Tony Pollard's not getting any love here.
There we go. Schultz and Pollard.
Oh, back to
23 and
back.
34.
I don't know about that ranking there. I'd say Pollard's probably higher on the scale of free agents, top 100 than Dalton Schultz, in my honest opinion. So out of those two guys, who do you think we retain? I mean, they're saying we're going to franchise TP. So
yeah, and honestly, for the organization, the franchise is the best choice. As long as you go ahead and look to draft his replacement in this year's draft at some point, because if you franchise him this year, he has another great season, the value is just going to go up, and then you're going to sign him at 27 for a lot. Like now you're just kind of repeating that Zeke contract scenario. So I think Tony Pollard gets franchised and stays one more year as a Cowboy, but then I damn well hope they find a replacement for him. It is true, though, TP20's only had a little over 500 carries in his 4-year career. So,
which is fuck all for a guy that
it's not,
potential.
So there is that argument that he's young enough that he could still run for 4 more seasons as a full-time, like as your number one.
Just don't do what we did with Zeke and make it like a 6-year. Do like a 3-year or 4. Like if you're gonna sign him long term, granted he's going to be looking for something that sets him up for the rest of his life. But you franchise tag him. Maybe they even maybe they end up working out a 2-year or 3-year deal, using Zeke as kind of an example, saying, "Hey man, like we love to have you on the team, but we just don't want to bite in like we did last time."
Yeah, well, they can always franchise and then sign a contract.
Yep. Right? So they can do that.
So, and I think, I don't know, that's it, right? Hey, for free agents.
I'd say my guess is Wilson's on there somewhere.
Oh,
Donovan Wilson's got to be on there somewhere, and then there might be. I'm trying to think who else that could possibly be on there. Leighton Vander Esch might be on there somewhere deep at the end. I mean, LVE I think deserves to be on the top 100. So there's Donovan Wilson ranked 56. Everyone likes their safeties to play linebacker these days, and that's where Wilson does his best work. Hey man, I agree with that.
Do you think Cowboys are gonna re-sign him?
I hope so. He's our fan favorite for us. He's a fan. Like he was one of your favorite players, one of my favorite players. He's super noticeable when he's on the field, and I really hope they bring Donald back.
And safeties, you can easily do those 2-year contracts with them.
Yep. And the market's not crazy, but someone might come out and there's LVE 78. It was fun to watch Vander Esch in Dallas, even if his old quickness isn't all the way back in his rookie form. He anticipates so well. And LVE won his way into my heart. He did have a good season, and I would like for them to be able to work something out with him.
Yeah, out of all of them on the board, out of those 4, I want to see TP's going to get franchised if they don't sign the contract. So let's not look at him. But it would go Wilson, LVE, and then Schultz.
I agree. That's my kind of. I definitely Wilson over the 3 because, as you mentioned, Tony Pollard is pretty much going to be on the team.
What about this scenario? LVE, a 4-year contract at about $7 million a year average, or what was his name? The linebacker from the Rams,
Bobby Wagner.
2 years for 12.
Oh, I don't know if they could. Are we just saying like cap aside? What would I take if we had it? Well, I gotta go Bobby Wagner, man.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, I'll take cap in like. They could do it, let's just say, but it would just mean that you don't have $5 million less to do things.
I would take Bobby Wagner. I still think he has 2 years left in him.
Yeah, me too.
Who would you take? You take Wagner?
Yeah, I'd take Wagner because you have the resume, and he is 33 though, but he's just on that tier above LVE at this point.
Yeah, I'd say still very. He had a very good season last year, and the only reason he's leaving the Rams is because he wants to play for a Super Bowl contending team, and he doesn't think that the Rams are going to be contending for a Super Bowl again anytime soon. So I don't blame the guy. They mutually parted ways, and he's going for his last run.
Hell yeah. Well, hey, come to the Cowboys. Give us a little sweet deal too.
Give us some of that sweet dealness, baby.
Well, it's going to be exciting, man, because the free agency is going to start unraveling. I just hope we're not standing around holding our nuts like last year. It felt like.
Yeah, nothing really happened in free agency for us, did it? It was kind of like you kept getting these little tidbits thinking the Cowboys were going to make this big move, and it just never happened.
No.
And I feel like the Cowboys were possibly one good player away from really having a decent shot at the Super Bowl. There could have been that one player against San Francisco that if you would have just went out at free agency and got him, maybe he makes a play in that big game, and then it's all worth it.
Yeah.
So, or what are we doing Wednesday? Are we Ad's still gone on Wednesday?
Ad's gone on Wednesday. He's not back Thursday, so we can, which is what we originally planned. So let's just go Wednesday again. Okay. Same time, same place, but we'll figure out. Are you up? Are you back up in K-Town?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so we'll probably just do it this way again.
Do it this way. We'll find someone. We'll bring on a guest. We'll live it up. We got to do our version 3 of our mock draft.
Yeah, I might head. I could if Studio V set up. I could go there and we could run it from there.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. So we'll look at that. So Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, we will be back. No, there's not going to be any outro music because our CTO is out gallivanting in New York. So
it's a hell of a town.
Alex and Bandwagon Boy 2 over there and myself are going to try to man the space for the next, just one more episode. And then our chief technical officer will be back to make us go from a $5 looking podcast to $50,000 looking podcast.
There we go. That's why he's on salary.
That's why he's on salary. All right, man. We will be back Wednesday night. Anyone that stopped by, thanks. And I hope you stopped by for the mock draft. We out.
Yes. Peace.
I'm still going to dance like there's outro music.
Yeah.